Hello, BookTube, and happy St. Patrick's Day 2024. This is a green appareled, green beard, green vomited day in which we celebrate the Irish. Not only the long history of Ireland, but also the long history of Irish Americans who started coming here a century or more ago in waves of immigration, seeking their fortune in a new land, creating new traditions, and I love the subject. Absolutely love it. I spent a lot of time in Ireland. It's one of the places that I lived on the West Coast, and I have read an enormous amount about Ireland, both Ireland and Irish America. So I thought I'd make a starter kit. I did a quick search. I'm hoping that I've never done one of these before and that this isn't just an exercise in duplication. I don't think I ever have. There are innumerable books that I could recommend. Innumerable. I'm really, really hoping that I don't get that pointed out to me in the comments of this video. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes people, Irish Americans especially, get so pedantic about their Irishness that they feel the need, they feel the need to pipe up with the Gaelic version of "well, actually," the minute you mention stuff like this. This is a very friendly starter kit. I am well aware of all the titles that are not on this list. And I've read more of those titles than you have, and I know more about them than you have if you are the kind of pedant who is inclined to leave such a comment. Kindly don't. Instead, I want to give you just a list of 10 things that, if you're ever interested in pursuing the subject of Irishness or of Irish American heritage, these are wonderful places. I think the list is pretty much split between the two. And I've tried to include fiction and nonfiction, and I have tried my hardest to make the list vary over time and over association. I'm not sure that I have succeeded. I'm pretty sure that on this list, I personally knew 6 of the figures who are involved and was friends with 3 of them. I still recommend their books, and my recommendation is still good. You will like these books. If you're interested in the subject at all, you will. I want to start off with one of the 2 great American political novels, which is kind of strange when you think about it. America is not a theocratic state yet. America is not an autocratic state yet. America has had as its foremost form of entertainment, its foremost sport, politics. I always think that that would lead to more great political novels. And yet in American history, there have been, I want to say 2, maybe 2.5. Of the 2, one is a tragic story and one is a funny story that ends up being tragic because it's Irish, and the Irish are always good at both. I want to choose the happy one, the tragic comic one, and this is The Last Hurrah by Edwin O'Connor. This is the cover to the University of Chicago Press trade paperback. That is wonderful. The Last Hurrah languished out of print for a while, and the great Levi Stahl brought it back as a passion project for the University of Chicago. So there is a natty, well-made trade paperback that you can get of this novel. And this is the story of an old politician. He's a Boston politician, although Boston is never named, who wants to make one last hurrah. He wants to make one last try at elected office. He knows the world is changing. He knows that the city's politics are changing, and that he knows also that he's a dinosaur. He is an impresario of a way of being elected to office that is leaving, that is going away, a way of doing politics that is leaving. He still wants to try one last time, and he dragoons a younger friend, a younger relative, to come in and watch the whole process. And it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It will touch you. It will move you. I mean, it will make you laugh out loud. There are scenes in here that are comic set pieces, the like of which no other American author has ever done. But I might be biased on that subject, and also there are also sad. There are somber scenes in here as well that will move you. So I had to start with that. But in this next one, it's 2 volumes. They're both big. It's 2,000-page volumes, and it might be hard to find. I hate to put books like this on starter kits, because a starter kit is not only where you can enter on the ground floor, but in my mind, it's also where you can just go and get the thing. I have never seen these in the wild used. I got them from a new bookstore where I was working. I've never seen even one of the volumes used. They're wonderful. They're weird. They're strange. They're big. They're involving. They're by Don Atkinson, and they are an Irish history of civilization in 2 volumes. the other volume looks just like this. That's a coracle on the cover there. I just realized that. Well, the other volume looks just like this. They have this dark sepia tone covers to both of them, and they are a weird combination of scattershot vignettes and oral histories, designed to show the Irish and their dubious contributions to human civilization for 1,000 years in 1,000 different cultures. These are hard volumes to classify, but they were a reading experience like no other. I kick myself that I got rid of mine. I think I remember that I sent them to a friend, and I think I remember thinking the Brattle will provide, and that was 30 years ago. Maybe I'll see them again someday. They're very much worth your time if your library has them. Then this next one is a classic of modern historical writing. To my mind, it's never been beaten. It's had 1 million copies. You might find a copy at a used bookstore that doesn't look anything like this. This is R.F. Foster's book, Modern Ireland, which goes from 1600 to 1972. It is big, sweeping, austere narrative history at its best. If you're looking for Irish history in one volume, or one big volume, this is a good one to have. I also very seldom see this out in the wild. Don't have a copy at the moment. This next one is also really long. One of the things, one of the qualities that the Irish tend to have on either side of the Atlantic Ocean is prolixity. We do so love to talk and write. We do so love to talk and to write. It's a very verbal culture. It's a very vocal culture, a very rhetorical culture. I had an old friend years ago who is also from a very verbal and very vocal, very rhetorical culture. It's not Irish though. And he over wine and calzones here at Hyde Cottage, I was mentioning that the Irish have always been in love with words, in love with literature. And speaking from the height of his own culture, he looked at me and said, well, okay, but then if that's true, then in all this time, why aren't the Irish... And he was groping for a word, and I supplied it to him. Better? And he said, well, yes. At which point I believe I said, feck you. Anyway, this next book is also long. It's a historical novel. A lot of you will remember it. It was a huge bestseller that I think might be in print in a big, boring-looking trade paperback. I don't have a copy of this book, and I refuse to get a copy. I'm going to wait until I find this mass-market paperback. I thought I'd find it this week, when I saw probably 5,000 books, but I never saw it. Never saw a copy of it. This is Morgan Llewellyn, and this is The Lion of Ireland. This is her great, gigantic novel of the semi-mythical king, Brian Boru. And the women in his life, and the dedicated enemies in his life, and the battles, and the peace times, and the song, and Morgan Llewellyn, she's a wonderful person, wonderful author, and this is a terrific book. She's written a lot of terrific books, a lot of them. She wrote a trilogy of books on the Easter Uprising. She wrote a book on Finn McCool. I don't know. I think I would probably give the best to this. I strongly recommend it. You will really like it. Okay, and this next one, I'm going to include it. These recommendations are good, regardless of whether or not I have known the author, regardless of not I say the author's a great person. This is The Rising of the Moon by William Martin. Some of you may recognize a Boston locality in the background there. This is about the Easter Uprisings, about the Easter Rebellion. And this is a historical novel from the author of Back Bay and Cape Cod. This is the cover to a later reprint. This was a very natty paperback reprint that this thing got years and years afterwards. It was Cape Cod and Back Bay. I mean, Bill Martin's written a lot of books since those, but those are the ones that really at once upon a time, made him a household name. And probably you have those books in your house. They're very, very good. But so is this one. And it's maybe a different side of William Martin than you would expect that he could unlimber. If all you know him from is Back Bay, Cape Cod, Annapolis, if you know him from those kinds of books, this might surprise you. It's very good, very effective. Okay. All right. This one is political history. It's terrific. Oh my. It's American political tradition. It's American political history. It's about the Irish Americans who came to America with nothing. They were at the bottom of the rung uh, of society. And through hustle and a little leg breaking and a lot of sweet talk, a lot of honeyed words, they uh, assimilated. They assimilated into American life. And they learned pretty early on that there are two main ways that you could do that if you are Irish that will give you a likelihood of success. I know this is going to shock a lot of you, but a lot of those Irish immigrants who became Irish Americans weren't really good with money. It seems to be something of a national trait. They weren't really good with money, but they were really good talkers and they were really good writers. And if you're a really good talker in America, there's a route that you can take, and it's politics. And Irish Americans grafted on to that whole routine. And some of them rose to great heights. I want to show you a couple of those, a few of the people who rose to great heights. We'll go up in rungs of power, if I may be allowed to do that. This is a great book by a fantastic author, a wonderful guy. This is The Rascal King by Jack Beatty. And this is a biography of James Michael Curley, the legendary mayor of Boston. The character on whom the main character of the last Hurrah is based. These are his real life stories, and some of them, I swear, in this biography, some of those real life stories are so outrageous that Edwin O'Connor couldn't have put them in the last Hurrah, and no one would have believed it in a novel. And here it is in real life. This is a wonderful, chatty, anecdotal, warm book. It is a perfect companion to Curley's own book, I'd Do It Again. If you ever see that book and are interested in American political memoirs, there's never been one like it. But there's also never been a political life like this. Curley kept or retained or regained office many times under many circumstances. He was a controversial figure all the way to the end, and a wonderful speaker. A wonderful figure, even in late in his life. A wonderful, compelling person. If you went to his house and he welcomed you past the front door, after that point, it wasn't the political person who was welcoming you in. It was a man, just a person, a wonderful, warm person. We'll move on to another political life. We'll go one rung higher. This is by John O'Farrell. This is an absolutely terrific book. This is Tip O'Neill and the Democratic Century. The guy with the big, glowing white head of hair is Tip O'Neill. The version of this book that I remember did not have this cover. I kind of like this cover. But Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House of Representatives here in the United States. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives, if they aren't an absolute poltroon, an absolute monkey or a moron, or if they aren't kissing the ring of an autocrat, if they aren't outsourcing their own authority to someone else, which once upon a time, forever, literally forever in American politics, if you got to be Speaker of the House, you did not go and bend the knee. You did not go and kiss anyone's ring. It's a place in American political superstructure of immense power. It's only in extremely recent times, less than a decade, that we see a succession of Speakers of the House who are open about being obeisant servants to someone who isn't even in politics. That had never happened before. Certainly, Tip O'Neill would have had choice words about any speaker that acted that way. He was Speaker for a very, very long time and ruled a large chunk of Washington. And he was foul-mouthed and foul. Also, he was 30 cigars a day, but also wonderful. Knew how to get deals done, knew how to draw bright, hard lines, knew how to keep his members in line. And Farrell captures it perfectly. This is such a savvy political biography that I had to include it. And if we're ascending the ranks of American political life, I swear the whole list won't be that way, but if we're ascending the ranks of American political life, of how high Irish Americans climbed in the political ladder, well, we'd better conclude by going all the way to the top. And that would be President John F. Kennedy. And I want to recommend 1,000 Days by Arthur Schlesinger. This is sometimes contemptuously referred to by modern cynical critics who've never had a clean ideal in their life, I might add, but that's a subject for another day. He is sometimes often referred to as a court historian. He wasn't. and that wouldn't have been put up with by his boss. The 1,000 Days is a searching, very intelligent book. It's, of course, incredibly sad. Because it shouldn't have been just 1,000 Days. And Schlesinger knew it, and so did everybody else who read this book. But it's also very knowing. This is, it's totally accidental that the two covers look the same. I didn't know that, but maybe one is an homage to the other. But this is terrific. There are lots and lots of other books you can read on John F. Kennedy. I'd be happy to recommend them, but this is terrific. As a starter kit, it's terrific. And thankfully, we'll move back to fiction. A lot of Irish fiction is split along two subjects, either 1916 or the ancient Irish myths and sagas. There have been a whole bunch of authors who've delved into them. I think Brian Boru would be right on the borderline of that. And this next one is firmly in that camp. This is by an author named Kenneth Flint, and this is A Storm Upon Ulster. And this is his novel of Cuchulainn, great character from the Ulster cycle, from the Red Branch stories. This is amazingly good. It was clearly meant, as you can tell, this was a second mass market paperback cover, and as you can tell, this was clearly meant by Flint and also by his publisher to take the stories of the Irish myth cycles and cross them over into the American fantasy paperback market. And it worked. I think it worked better with this book than it did with any of the other books that Kenneth Flint, or a lot of books that tried to do that. And another author also did the same, did a lot of books on the Red Branch cycle. I think this one works better than any of them because it works better as a novel. That's all. I'd be willing to bet that if you read this, even if you know nothing about Irish history, nothing about Irish mytho-history, nothing about Irish mythology, and aren't interested in them, you might still have missed this as a fantasy novel. And I think you'll really like it as a fantasy novel. Okay. Then we'll do fiction, contemporary Irish fiction, but redolent of Irish culture, of contemporary Irish culture. This is a contemporary novel. This is Circle of Friends by Maeve Binchy. I cannot recommend this author strongly enough. I know that if you know of her, more than likely you know of her as a kind of, I don't even know how you describe it, how the current literary world doesn't talk about her at all. She's gone, and so are her books. But decades ago, the common literary world referred to her as, Danielle Steele, Nora Roberts. She's a women's fiction, that sort of thing. I don't agree with those labels anyway. I did challenge any critics who offhandedly use them to tell me what that means. But this is a wise and knowing author. It absolutely does not matter to me that these books are a delight to read. I am obviously not aligned with any part of the critical world that says if something's a delight to read, that's a demerit. That is not a demerit. These are wonderful books to read. Circle of Friends is probably the place where I would start. I think technically speaking, organizationally speaking, it's her strongest book. There are some that I like better, but they tend to be the ones where she's being a little more self-indulgent. She's not at all self-indulgent in this book. I strongly recommend it. I don't have a copy, but I strongly recommend it. And then we'll finish up. Since we did Cuchulainn and since we did Storm Upon Ulster, we might as well, if we're going to do fictional treatments of things like that, we might as well go right to the source of the matter. Penguin Classics. Of course, we can end up with Penguin Classics. They do a version of one of the high points of Irish mythological writing. This is the Taun. This is the Cattle Raid of Cooley, and it's in a very good English language translation. There are things that are done in the original that this English language translation, this English language translator, I feel certain, simply decided ahead of time that English can't do. I don't believe that. I'm as big a fan of William Gaddis as I am of William Shakespeare. There's nothing the English language can't do. When you say that, you are saying more about yourself than you are about your original, I think. Maybe I've never tried it, so maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know what this author was up against. But this Penguin version of the Cattle Raid of Cooley is very good. And there are tons of notes and a great introduction and lots of bibliographical pointers for you to other resources, to other books, which is always good. Penguin is always great at that, and this volume is particularly good at that. And you'll probably want that. If you're at all interested in this subject and this is where you're encountering it, you're going to want knowledgeable pointers in other directions. You can't get them all from me. Actually, could. If you want to email me, you could. But there you go. That is a St. Patrick's Day starter kit. The only reason that there's so much Irish American stuff on this list is because St. Patrick's Day is an American institution as well as an Irish one. It feels weirdly heretical that I did not go this year to the South Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade and take the little bean. It feels odd that I didn't do that, but I didn't. But nevertheless, I've been there many times. I've been to that parade on innumerable occasions. It is, well, it bears an uncomfortable resemblance to its equivalent as it was immortalized on The Simpsons. But still, it's a grand time that you're not going to remember. and that is it. That is a St. Patrick's Day starter kit for you. I could have gone on. This list could be 200 books long, 300 books long. But these will do for a start. If you've never broached the subject of anything Irish in literature, these will do as a start. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. I'm going to try to make my way back to BookTube, so I figured this was as congenial a way to do it as any, unless I were to do a dog starter kit, which I think I've already done. That's it. That's your starter kit for this Sunday. I will try to be back to business on Monday. Thank you, BookTube.